5 minutes before the cameras ran and the broadcast went out to the nation, Jeannette was staring at the script. She was confused because she knew what it read had to be fake. At the same time, it simply said that the Prime Minister had had a walk with his dog, and that he had fed some ducks. It wasn't up for debate that it was a lie. Nothing she ever read these days was remotely adjacent to the truth. But still, it was odd. If Maggie had said that she'd walked the dog today, Jeannette would probably have believed it, but the same couldn't be said here, could it? Not on the national news broadcast. Everyone saw it. Everyone was meant to tune in every morning, and every morning Jeannette read a slew of falsehoods, half-truths, and trouser-burningly bad lies. It was a lot to do with the Prime Minister, how he was saving the world, one handwave or press conference at a time. He would be, if the NNN had their way, a modern god, and the masses would gaze upon his works and despair. A lot of people, of course, didn't really believe it, though she didn't really pay any attention to the constant bickering online. She picked up enough to know that she was saying some real nonsense each morning. But everyone in the country was too busy throwing up their feelings on their assigned tablets that it didn't really matter in the end. Everyone was angry, not making sense, so Jeannette could say the Prime Minister walked on water this afternoon and it wouldn't make a lick of difference. It was business as usual, just more slop in the trough. Jeannette knew all that. She'd stopped getting angry about the truth ages ago. It just wouldn't work in the modern day. She knew she couldn't beat herself up. She knew it was the way of things, so she decided to bite the bullet. As the saying surmised, if she couldn't beat them, she could join them. And she fit right in, too. She was a good speaker, able to hold herself well and make every single thing she said sound terribly interesting. She made one hell of a living from presenting, but this story, this little thing, it was so peculiar. It didn't upset her, per se. It wasn't going to make her get existential or anything like that, but it was so very odd. It was such an odd thing to lie about, and it had to have been a lie. It was borderline comical to see how much of the stuff she'd said each broadcast was false. This just had to be a lie too, but how could something so innocuous be fabricated? She knew the Prime Minister had a dog. It existed. Maybe instead of taking it for a walk by the lake, he'd kick the thing into it. She snorted. No, probably not. People would have been jawing on about that all morning. The camera crew, two short men by the name of Martin and Frank, loved to joke about the bullshit they were going to broadcast. A dog in the lake would have had them rolling, but roll they did not. She was watching them as they argued over the state of a guest who was going on after her morning presentation. Martin animatedly waving his hands, Frank pinching his nose in a vice grip, mouthing obscenities as interns rushed agitatedly in the background trying to get everything ready. The guest was supposed to talk about how Caravel Corp's plan to land on Halley's Comet was going, and apparently he'd spilled tea all over himself and had no spare change of clothes. She thought it amusing that a person leading a mission of such complexity hadn't the dexterity to handle a mug of tea. That'll go great, she mused. She was getting distracted. Her eyes drifted back to her tablet, squinting at the Prime Minister's toothily grinning figure staring at her from underneath the headline. A picture of him, posing during the aforementioned dog walk. What was fake about it? That was the question to ask. The grass, of course, that was fake, but to be honest, she'd be surprised if it wasn't. She wasn't even sure if she could remember the last time she saw the real stuff. It was all artificial turf in the city now. Hell, even in what remained of the countryside, she was pretty sure grass was a rare commodity these days. All hay fields or potato paddocks. Either way, plastic foliage didn't exactly scream, "This thing does not happen." But what about the dog? It could have been fake. Maybe the Prime Minister had replaced the old one with an exact replica without telling anyone. Android dogs existed. Easier to clean and exactly like your flesh and blood mutts. That's what the ads claimed. Claimed, in retrospect, seemed an apt word for it. Jeannette and Maggie, after the honeymoon, decided to buy a dog for the flat, but there were lots of warnings about air pollution at the time. Couldn't put a rebreather on a dog's face, so the next best thing was to get an android one. And he was a good boy, sure, but God, was he a little off-putting at times. It was the body that did it, the way it moved. Android joints moved strangely, stiffly. Taking him for walks was a little like taking a rocking horse on a lead. she idly mused about the possibility of a humanoid model to come out in the future. Still, she was pretty sure even if the dog was robotic, it would still be a picture of a blustering old fool walking his wiry little hound. The headline wouldn't be lying. Why would he replace it with a copy anyway? Maybe it knew too much and had to be silenced for the good of national security. She'd heard that line whispered in hushed, mock-serious tones by the camera boys. She sniffed. Maybe the whole bloody picture was fake. It was easy enough to do that. Jeannette had spliced herself into a few photos with celebrities when she was younger, for a laugh. Now that everyone had a tablet, everyone could just go to town with the visual fakery. Not just visual fakery, even. She remembered choking with laughter when she'd heard a manufactured voice online which sounded just like the Prime Minister. It was exclaiming how big and wrinkly his ass was. It had to be fake. It just had to be fake. The idea that something true could come from Home Office was the strangest thing in the world. Fake grass, fake dogs, fake photos, fake everything. That was the world now. For something sincere to come up and shake it up, it was just a lot. Why now? Why after all this time would the higher-ups decide to say something that meant anything? That was the really puzzling thing. Why not lie? Why not say that, in fact, the Prime Minister healed 18,000 babies from super cancer and ended poverty with a blow of a kiss? That would have made more sense. It was just irritating more than anything else. The nerve, the absolute gall of it all. She'd gotten used to truth meaning nothing, and now, out of nowhere, something real was going to come from her lips. Seriously? They were taking the piss. Really fucking taking the piss. And Jeanette's hand shook, the tablet jittering in her lap. She looked up. The camera crew were still arguing, the interns were still interning. It was a minute till broadcast. It didn't matter. None of it did. So what if it was fake? So what if it was real? Jeannette was going to smile, say something she didn't really believe in, and get paid. That, she knew, that was real. She could hold on to that. Bollocks to the online spectators jeering and clashing about who said what. Bollocks to pretending anything that was said mattered. She at least knew her own life. That was as real as it needed to be. A bloody dog wasn't going to shift that anytime soon. All right, shut the fuck up, Martin. We need to go live. Man the bloody camera. We're on in 30. Jeanette, you good? Jeannette nodded and gave a thumbs up beside a hollow smile. All right. Places, folks. Get the auto-cue fired up. Maybe she would lie about the dog walk. That'd be a laugh. They'd probably not notice. Martin, stop pissing yourself over the guest and man your post. 15 seconds. Nah, best not, she thought. Her livelihood mattered. Fucking up the jog for fun made little sense. 15 seconds, Jeanette. Eyes to the camera. But did anything make sense? She could literally say that the Queen had returned to life and wreaked havoc on London, or that an octopus the size of France had jammed a tentacle into Sweden, and it would be just as believable as literally anything else. It was funny, in a horrid sort of way. 5 seconds! A deep breath. Her eyes were up. A big smile was worn. The temptation to just make up everything on the spot was oddly strong. It weirdly felt like she had power here. As the lights raised and the opening jingle played, Jeannette knew that she could say anything and no one would care. It was a weird sort of invincibility. The idea that a story about a dog walk could be just as real as a story where the Prime Minister kicked the thing into fucking space. It was a comfort. A blissful reminder that her words were just as important and as meaningless as everyone else's.